are back. Welcome to the CapCon podcast from the Times-Union. I'm Dan Clark, your host, and the author of the Capitol Confidential newsletter. It's been a while since you've seen us in your podcast feeds, so you might be wondering what this is all about. Well, long story short, we've actually had this planned for a little bit more than a year, but little things like a presidential election that polarized politics kept getting in the way. So here we are many, many months later, and the CapCon podcast is finally ready for its revival. It is risen, you might say. That's a little Easter pun. Joining us first is Blake Washington, the State Budget Director. Blake, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Love a good Easter pun.
Don't you love that? Thanks for enduring my intro. It is Monday that we're talking, the 14th, I believe. The last time that I spoke to you was last week, I think, when you were speaking to reporters. Has anything changed budget-wise since then?
Nothing materially, although discussions have continued. Leaders have met, staff have met. This weekend, in observance of the holidays, I think many of us staff were able to go back to our families and see them for 48 hours, which was a welcome respite. But generally speaking, we're coming back this week energized. I think everybody across the board, legislature included, certainly the governor, having met with her this morning, fired up, ready to just bring it home and hopefully collaborate and do the right thing to deliver a budget that New Yorkers can be proud of.
We are in your office right now.
Indeed.
How many times have you slept on that couch?
Zero.
Zero.
I'm happy to say I've not slept on that couch. I've been here about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Have not taken up that yet. I'm more of a chair sleeper. If necessary, I would close my eyes for 5 minutes or so, but try not to make too much of a habit of sleeping in the office.
Good. I mean, everybody should not make a habit of that. I
Good thing
think
to aspire
I would
to.
never sleep in my office. For one, because the LCA is filled with asbestos. For two, I don't want to get disturbed by any reporters who are there. You have been here about a year and a half in this role. It's your second state budget. How does this feel different? Does it feel different or about the same as last year?
Roughly the same. I mean, at least the fundamentals are roughly the same. We have some different headwinds than we did last year. We have obviously financial markets are being roiled over the last couple of weeks, and that's happened since we've introduced the governor's budget. We also have a new Congress that has a lot of fire in the belly and a lot of creative energy around restraining aid to states, and
Yes.
that's going to, as those cuts become known, that'll complicate the process in the coming months. But as for the moment in time, it feels very similar. The governor, working with her and our senior team, it's steady as she goes. We're focused. We're trading information with the legislature. We're keeping each other up to speed on a daily basis. The work of the people goes on.
What does that look like when you have these federal cuts? It's difficult to budget, obviously, because you don't know how much you're going to have to fill or how much is going to be taken from you or anything like that. What is that like? Let's say it's September and we get a bunch of cuts. Is that just like we're going to restart like this whole budget conversation? We bring everybody back and say like, all right, now we got to amend this thing. That's what I'm most curious about is like, how does it happen?
Yeah, so I think it certainly remains to be seen. You know, the state of New York gets well over $90 billion in aid from the federal government any year.
93.
Yeah, and so it depends how deep the cuts are, and I think that it'll require some level of reassessment with the legislature, and it would require us more than likely coming back and assessing if those cuts are deep where it's a material impact to the financial plan. I think everybody is generally oriented around that, even if it's much to our own chagrin here. But in the interim, the governor, I'm certainly the members of the legislature are doing the same, and that is appealing to to our federal counterparts, members of Congress, encouraging them to be as light as possible. The state of New York, particularly as it relates to the Medicaid program, we have a substantial number of people that receive services. 9 million people between Medicaid and other publicly sponsored health insurance programs. So we have a lot at stake here, and so our advocacy has been working with the congressional members on both sides of the aisle to try to head off or mitigate any of those actions as they come. And then obviously we'll deal with the bill, with the law when it comes due. We don't think, at least public reporting indicates that a lot of those discussions in Congress will yield a product somewhere in September, October.
Right.
So in the interim, we've got to get the job done for the people of the state of New York, enact a budget that makes sense, and then live to fight another day.
Unless we don't have a budget until September.
Well, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. There's lots of I think it's obviously there have been some big issues in this budget that we're working through, but the fundamentals remain the same. We have a governor that's driven to get this done in a responsible way. We have a legislature that wants the same. We're not talking about 98% of the budget in any given year, frankly. So much of that New Yorkers rely upon is plug and play. You start the budget with a base level of budgeting that's required when you think about our schools, Medicaid, human services programs. Those things are still fundamental. They're still integral to a functioning society. A lot of local aid to local governments and things of that nature. Those things must go on. So, at the end of the day, we'll get a budget that solves for all of that.
Well, we all hope so. A balanced budget, if you will. We've seen, as you mentioned, the economic volatility with the stock market, with Wall Street, and the state. I think a lot of people don't realize how much revenue we actually get from Wall Street in terms of their PIT, personal income tax, their bonuses, which I guess is part of their income tax that way. How scary is that as somebody who handles the budget? Is it like a big unknown, or is it more of like, do you have this question on your mind every year as you're putting it together?
Yeah, I mean, every year we have really talented people on the Division of Budget staff that project for these data. They watch the economic fundamentals, and we project forward to see exactly. We benchmark to exactly what's going on, what the facts on the ground are, and what we see into the future, forecasting. So it on a daily basis, we're always watching those data. We always watch daily receipts, and I think that this year, certainly in the last couple of weeks, not only on a daily basis but on an hourly basis, we've been watching some of the trends that move forward, some of the policies that are coming out of the White House. The state of New York is dependent upon Wall Street more so than any other state in the union, and it's an asset that we're proud to have here in our backyard, and we're very, very reliant upon their success to fund the many things that we care about in the state budget. We have the nation's most robust Medicaid program. We have the nation's most robust school aid program on local aid. That doesn't happen by accident, and happens because of this partnership with high-income individuals that work on Wall Street and in the finance and insurance sector. So, when they catch a cold, the state of New York feels it more so than anybody else. So we're watching it, and the level of uncertainty is never a fun thing to watch. Certainly from our economic forecasters, but certainly for myself as well.
Is it kind of a situation kind of like the federal cuts, where like I'm wondering, let me hopefully not predict the future. In August, the stock market crashes. It's the Great Depression all over again. What do we do? Is that like a moment where we have to come together and say, guys, the pot is going to be a lot less full this next year. We got to adjust. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and we've done this before in the state of New York. I've worked in this building for over 20 years, and there was a time during the Great Recession. Nobody planned for that, but we had to come back mid-year and adjust the budget accordingly, and that was a very painful process. Gallows humor. I was an analyst at the time, and I got to know a lot of programs a lot better than perhaps I would have known otherwise, because if there's going to be funding retrenchment, you better know what you're cutting.
Yeah.
So that was, again, gallows humor, perhaps trying to gild the lily here, but it was an opportunity for a lot of us staff in this building to learn a little bit more about programs. Now, I don't want people to pine for those days, but there is a path forward. There is a playbook for when those if something so calamitous happens where there's a big recession, it requires all people rowing in the same direction, getting the legislature on board to solve a big problem.
What does gild the lily mean?
Make a purse out of a sow's ear, or this is folksy Sullivan County wisdom here, but you're trying to, lemons out of lemonade, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I know that one.
Try to make something a little bit better than it is, but all the same, I'm an eternal optimist, so perhaps that's projecting here.
Remind me what years you were head of Ways and Means in the Assembly before this role.
From 2015 to 2023.
So you've had quite a few budgets under your belt. Something I've been curious about is, people say that this current governor is different than the preceding governor on budget talks. How is it from your perspective as somebody who was the Assembly representative in budget talks for so long? Now you're the state budget director, so you're kind of on the other side of it. What's different now between then?
Well, I'd say there is a big difference, and I say it starts with her level of collaboration and actual concern about what the leaders have to say in this process. She values their opinion. She values the opinion of the rest of the legislature. She knows that not everything that she'll propose in the budget will land the same exact way at the end of the day. But she knows also that with an open dialogue and an open chain of staff that can problem solve along the way, that's the way that New Yorkers will have something that people can be proud of. So I say the biggest difference is that this level of collaboration and even in the hard times, the level of dialogue and respect for the institutions that are here in the Capitol building, and I think that goes a long way.
Collaboration is really like the big word. I think I keep on hearing under this governor is she is much less of a teller and more of a working together person. I don't know the name for it. A partner, I guess I would say. Less of a director, more of a partner, which I think can be really valuable, especially in these talks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't just extend to the outward role. It's even internally. When we meet as staff, I'm one of 6 or 7 folks that meet with her as our senior team. And she values all of our opinions, and she wants to hear a difference of sort of life experiences of different people coming to bear on public policy and on spending, frankly. So it's a very gratifying process, and putting together the budget with the governor, because we deal with some heady things. We get inputs from everybody. We have a few laughs along the way, believe it or not.
We do too.
Yeah. So I think that it starts at home, and she is very, very intent on making sure that members of her senior team have a voice. She's very intent that members of my team are in meetings with her when we're talking about budget. She wants to see young people taking a leadership role in budget, not just Blake Washington talking all the time.
Who's going to replace Blake Washington Sunday?
Exactly. So she wants to see that. She wants to see deputy secretaries and ops folks. She wants to, and our assistant counsels. She wants to see to get their feedback in real time and have an honest dialogue with her, breaking down the barriers of state government. That's something that I've just been really, I've valued since I've been here.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
"12-year-old Jaliek Rainwalker vanished without a trace from a small upstate New York village on a cool November night in 2007. His adoptive parents say he ran away. Police believe he was murdered, but a body has never been found, and a suspect has never been named."
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah,
Appreciate
okay,
that.
all right, but you don't want to talk.
Then when I learned they were trying to undo the adoption, that's when I learned that this story was very complicated, well, a lot more complicated than I even thought.
Almost 2 decades later, the case remains unsolved. I'm Jessica Marshall.
And I'm Wendy Libertar.
In this podcast from the Times-Union, we take a deep dive into the mystery of this missing child and try to find some answers.
So have you come to terms that Jaliek is probably dead?
Yes. I feel that he was killed on November 1st, 2007.
Available now, wherever you listen to podcasts.
you're enjoying this podcast, take advantage of all the Times Union has to offer and support our efforts to bring you award-winning journalism by becoming a Times Union subscriber today. Go to timesunion.com/subscribe.
All right, and we're back on the Capitol Confidential podcast with State Budget Director Blake Washington. So the state budget, there are so many different parts of it, right, that we could talk about endlessly for days. One thing that people have brought up in the past couple of days as not days, weeks, as a pressure point is, we need to have a budget for schools and local governments to plan. And I know the governor said something along the lines of they'll have the information that they need when they need it. I have no idea what that means. At first, I thought maybe we pass the school aid runs and then figure out the rest of the budget later, but it doesn't sound like we're to the foundation aid formula yet. So you tell me.
So on school aid, the districts are rightfully concerned to see what their level of state aid is. And the way that we would suggest that that's handled in the near term is using the governor's budget with 30-day amendments as a base. Having been here many, many years, that's usually the minimum that any school district would get. The legislature tends to build upon that. So I think that would be the best metric. I think that's what districts have done in the past. That's the tried and true methodology.
Yeah, so like the hold harmless, but not that. You know what I mean?
Right. So they have a school aid run that came out with the governor's budget.
Right.
It has what under current law districts would receive, and under the governor's proposal what districts would receive. So using that as a proxy until an enacted budget is probably the smart move.
So they have some idea at
That's
least. Right. It's strange because we're focusing on policy in budget discussions right now around discovery, masks. What are the other two that I am forgetting?
Involuntary commitment, affordability.
There it is. No, there's another one that's not affordability. School, cell phones in schools.
Cell phones in schools, yes, of course.
Yeah, but we haven't really spoken a lot about the spending side yet. And, that's your whole thing, right? So the governor is proposing a $252 billion budget. The legislature is about $10 billion over that. Mm-hmm. And I know you said before that you'll probably land somewhere near the governor's budget instead of the legislature's budget. Why do you think that is? Is that just because trying to be a little bit more conservative spending wise, or does that just seem to be where the spending is headed?
Well, I think just fundamentally the legislature's proposals are a statement of ideals and a statement of principles, but they, each house has $10 billion in spending above the governor, and that just doesn't the math doesn't work in that.
We can't get $10 billion somewhere.
Correct. So the math isn't necessarily working under that scenario, but it doesn't mean that we take their proposals any less lightly. What can you do in year one? What can you do now? What do we? We may not, as a public policy matter, agree with each one of the proposals as we go through the governor's budget. They may not agree with things that are in there as well. So there's a lot of give and take, and we see what the leadership can agree upon to drag it across the finish line. So generally speaking, in a perfect world, the budget when it resolves will be closer to the governor's budget, just because there's just fundamentally only so much revenue to spend, and we need to plan for next year, and we need to plan for other as we started talking about at the top on economic realities that are changing before us.
Yeah, that's the scary part that I keep on going back to in my head, because every time I want to pull something like Medicaid or education out of the budget and get into it, I'm like, should I write about this if it's not going to be here in 3 months? Like, I don't even know. And I can't imagine being somebody who relies on those services right now and not knowing what is going to happen down the road. And I guess that's our job to tell them. So I'm doing a bad job here. With the rest of the budget, like, I look at the legislature's budgets as like everything that they wish that they could possibly have under everything. And they have a bunch of little things that I know wasn't in the executive budget that are kind of related to those cuts. And I wanted to ask you about two of them. Mm-hmm. housing vouchers, the access program. What does that feel like? I'm thinking about people who may not have access to Section 8 in the future because of these cuts. Like, is that something that we could look at, you think? Or is that one of those things where it's just too much to backfill?
Well, I think first and foremost, the governor has been very, very clear that as far as housing is concerned, providing housing in every corner of the state, making it available to every level of income and in every community is paramount. The governor believes strongly that supply helps to ease a lot of the costs that are out there, that are the pressures that New Yorkers are facing.
Yeah.
Housing vouchers on the federal level, we don't know what they're doing yet with them. We have some early signs, and unfortunately, the federal government has never been wonderful to public housing authorities in the state of New York. Is not necessarily wonderful to transit. And that goes over many, many years, and it's not for want of a congressional delegation trying to move the needle on that. But those things are the depth and the expense for some of those things are just so great that a state can't actually handle it on their own.
Right.
So it's sort of around she goes. Like, we look at we hope that the Congress members that represent these areas care deeply enough to spare people from losing their voucher and losing their home. And I think that those are some of the advocacy points, some of the pressure points that people have been engaging with the congressional delegation on. Because there is no way, I think the governor said it, the leader said it, the speaker said it, there's no way we can backfill these federal cuts to the extent that they've been foretold. So
yeah.
Scary times.
I mean, more than half of what we receive from the federal government in funding is just Medicaid alone.
Absolutely.
So, and obviously, I don't think that they would cut the entire Medicaid funding for New York, but any cut is something to take a look at as a possible risk for some people. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was actually in the governor's budget last year, but it wasn't this year, and it was in the Senate One House budget this year, I believe. An increase to the temporary disability benefit. Has that come up in discussions, and do you have any insight on why that isn't in the executive budget this year? I don't remember how much it was going to cost, so cost could certainly be a factor. And because I know affordability is a big focus this year, so you tell me.
I mean, this governor is a very pro-labor, pro-worker governor, and I think that she wants to make sure that, of course, if you're injured on the job, if there's an inability for you to work because of disability, but it's not always injury on the job, but that there's a place for you to receive recompense. And the item is, like, I remember sitting here last year in our secretaries meetings, which is the secretaries of the Senate, the Assembly, and here in the executive branch, talking about TDI at 3:00 in the morning, temporary disability insurance. At 3:00 in the morning, and it's highly complicated, highly specialized work. And I think that last year there was a divergence between the governor's proposal and some of the legislative proposals, which were a lot more costly, but very well intentioned, and trying to make workers whole when something disastrous happens. So I think that's really the crux of it, is that what can you afford? What can workers afford? What can employers afford? What can the state of New York afford? And what provides for a real outcome for the people that need it most. So obviously we're reviewing every proposal that comes from the legislature, and it's just a matter of fitting into this big box when we land the plane on this budget.
I have the hardest question for you for last. Okay. This is your second budget. It's going to end at some point, eventually, we hope. Is this budget going to be better than last year's budget? It's like picking your favorite child, right?
That's fun. I mean, listen, any budget where we're still providing for the things that New Yorkers need is a good one in the governor's view, and certainly mine. If we're protecting public safety, if we're providing for affordability, if we're providing for the common sense solutions that New Yorkers care about, then it'll be better than ever before. If we're collaborating and if we're working together with the legislature to provide, to lift all boats along the way, better than ever before, and we're optimistic for it all.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. State Budget Director Blake Washington, thank you for joining us on the CapCon Pod.
Thank you for having me.
And if you want to subscribe to Capital Confidential, you just go to capitalconfidential.com. That's capital with an O, not capital with an A. Thanks to the Times Union and the Hearst Corporation for continuing to take a chance on CapCon. Our theme music, for now at least, is Easy Hike by DM. We'll see you next time. Be well.